when you come to see that awareness in its first, in its knowing, is more meaningful than everything you've built around you as an acquired meaning. Once awareness becomes established as what's more meaningful for you, then the dismantling of everything you believed in as yourself starts to diminish. You see? Question. I have a question that seems to relate to what you are saying. When I meditate, I feel space and silence, and an aliveness begins to open up. When this happens, there is a reaction to label and judge this as good, or as a good experience that I want more of, and then all sort of ideas about how to do something with this experience. It wants to do with this experience. I want to surrender to what is happening, but the reaction to possess the experience seems to get in the way. Can you say anything about this? Yes, I can say a lot on that. So when you meditate, you feel the space and silence, and the aliveness begins to open. The reaction to label and judge this as a good experience that I want more of. Yeah, when that reaction occurs, see that as just any other form where awareness is distinct from any form, then you'll just see that as a form itself arising. You see, but this is where it's tricky, because that subject I thought that wants to label, that wants to infer meaning to your what is true meaning. Sounds absurd, doesn't it? But that's the pattern. That inferred meaning to meditation is something that everyone has to walk through. Everyone has to be with, because it is a pattern. So when you're meditating and that spaciousness begins to open up, when those thoughts arise, or that pull to label, judge, and whether it's good or bad, remain at the root. Remain in that knowing that's opening up, that awareness that seems so distinct from this contracted pull to infer your acquired meaning. The ego self wants anything good that happens in your meditation, it would want it for itself. It wants to claim the experience, and what wants to claim the experience is simply a pattern, a habit. So have you identified with the mind? Observe it. Observe as awareness. And when this activity occurs, give that activity without inference to that awareness. Stand naked. Stand completely naked with nothing in your hands, with no technique, with no inferred meaning. And allow the temptation to monitor, or the temptation to separate into a thinker. Just allow that to happen. Really, really allow that to happen. But remain at the root. And what I mean by remain at the root is at the root of all form, even the illusionary form that appears as a doership or a personal sense of self, or should I say a personal separate self, even that is rooted in reality, all of it, everything. Although awareness is distinct from form, all form is rooted in awareness. All form has its root in what is knowing. There's no escaping that. That's why it's an illusion. It's actually not a reality, it's an illusion. When you wake up, you see that everything is rooted in reality. But reality is equanimous. This kind of meditation where one is pulled into monitoring or commenting, judging, liking, disliking, is good to see. It's good to see, if you see. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for your question. That question would apply to so many people. In the spiritual literature that I entered, the spiritual practice that I entered into, the 12 steps, they would say to me often, acceptance is the key. But I always try to accept it from the I. I didn't understand equanimity. I didn't understand how not to infer meaning, how not to claim the spiritual experience for myself. I was in a place of wanting to stop drinking because I didn't want to die or go mad or end up in an institution, as what I was told would happen if I was to continue. They said acceptance, open mind, acceptance, and willingness. But I didn't understand the will. I didn't understand how I was getting in the way. But of course, now I understand that acceptance isn't something you do. In the beginning, I would accept things from my inferred understanding of what acceptance meant as a word, you see. But then when awareness awakened, and that itself became the root and the real and the equanimous, distinct from form, yet the experience of form, I then understood, this is acceptance. It's not a doing, it's a reality. Because awareness in its equanimity, in fact, accepts everything, even the pattern to contract into a thinker, this pattern, this old pattern. Acceptance then became awareness, became synonymous with awareness, as did the word willing, because awareness is willing. And it's good to meditate one's pattern of separation, as long as you remain at the root. So this is why I said at the beginning, learn. This is what meditation is about. When one is instructed to meditate, is learning to, as awareness, open like a flower and come to see how it is distinct from form. And then remaining as that awareness is true meditation. And the deep understanding that comes from that is life then becomes a meditation, whereby meditation itself is the experience of you, whatever's happening, however you get triggered, angry, judgmental, it all has its root. It's rooted in your life experience, but your life experience is rooted in the knowing, you see. It all starts to unfold the more you see it, the more empowered or established you become as awareness being the experience, you see. And this awareness, when open, when distinct, becomes what you like more than anything, you see. And there's so much paradox in this, so much paradox. Because if you say that to the ego would say, oh, but you can't say that. That's selfish, that's self-centered, that's, you've got to love your children more, or you've got to love your partner more, you know, it's like that. But awareness in loving itself synonymously loves that in others. It doesn't see others as different. It's not distinct. It merges. It's the greatest love. It's the greatest willingness. It's the greatest openness. But if the mind claims it, the mind puts conditions. But as equanimity, there's no condition, it's prior condition. And it loves itself without inference. It's an aliveness, it's an openness, it's a body of reality that sees that in all things. And it merges, see. It doesn't see itself as other than, you know, if you're connecting with someone, it doesn't see the other person as other than where you see from. We share this body of reality, you see, that all appearance is rooted in, even your body. There's so many paradoxes, because then when you begin to remain, when awareness is found to be distinct and in itself complete, it's only then that awareness can go home. It's only then that awareness can actually inquire and contemplate its true nature, can go within it, to go within the self. But the ego has us go in the body, when the body itself is within consciousness. So it goes within itself, and then it becomes the experience, the equanimous experience of what it knows. And then where people say, oh, this is a spiritual bypass, or this is a dissociation, it's not. It claims all experience. It's a very intimate process. And then to make that distinction and then say, this is not real, this has no meaning, there's only awareness, and do nothing more, then that would be a spiritual bypass. Because awareness doesn't think like that. Your true nature does not even make that distinction. I make this distinction to take you from your acquired position and attention to what's prior that. And of course, there's instruction and there's distinction. But when awakened, it's not like that. Awareness can love itself more without inference, yet your whole world could be on fire, for instance, yet awareness remains the same. It remains autonomous, not autonomous, remains equanimous, equanimous, equanimity, equanimous. Yeah, anyway. So, but it's real. You see, you feel it. You. Everything's rooted in awareness being experienced. You see, and it's here that through self-realization, through awareness awakening to its distinction and its indistinction, both at the same time, indistinct to its innermost ground of all being, then claims the experience in a way that what we call transcendence is transcendental. And it claims the experience of the body mind, the mind especially, in a way that it transcends it, so that the knowing of the mind makes the mind known in a way where the mind reflects the knowing of it. It starts, you don't see the mind as other, even if there's a pattern to pull you into a personal oriented loop, for instance, because that's the way the mind works. It kind of loops, doesn't it? Mental, emotion. You go in these loops of acquired meaning and the drama, the reality, and all those things, and then, but you can be at the center of that storm, that eye of the storm, and allow it all to be rooted in this equanimity. So there's a much deeper experience, a much more intimate experience of your forms, you see. And as your forms are becoming known, they begin to open up. They begin to they begin to reconfigure. That's it. They begin to reconfigurate to consciousness being the experience.